Hello, hello. Welcome to High on Energy TV. This is episode 2. I'm super excited you're here, and I'm really excited to talk about today's topic is iodine deficiency, the cause of your fatigue. So I'm Kendra Perry. I'm your host, and I cannot wait to bring you more energy. And this topic today is very important, okay? We know that a lot of us are struggling with low energy. That's probably why you're tuning in for this episode, because your energy is a bit subpar, or even worse, it's barely even there. You're rating it like a 2 or a 3 out of 10, and you're wondering, well, what the fuck? Why do I feel so shitty? And it's a really good question because there are a lot of things that can play into fatigue, but this deficiency, iodine deficiency, is actually one of the major causes of fatigue, and it's one of the most common deficiencies that I am seeing in my clients. Once we correct this deficiency, it has big results. I've seen big results in the people I work with, but also in myself. This is a huge part of why I was able to reverse my debilitating fatigue and get out of that fatigue ditch. Okay, so let's start by talking about what is iodine. So when you think of iodine, you might be thinking of like that iodine that's in your first aid kit, right? Because I think a lot of us, we maybe use iodine to disinfect wounds, but we're not really fully aware of how important of a role it plays in our bodies and in our diet. So let's talk about some of the things that iodine is important for. So number one, detox. Iodine is a very powerful detoxifier. It helps you detox. So we need iodine in order to detox, especially certain metals like excess copper and mercury. So we need iodine for that. We also need iodine to have healthy thyroid hormone production. So T4 and T3, those are your thyroid hormones. Those are actually made from iodine, okay? T3 is 3 molecules of iodine and T4 is 4. So if we want to have healthy thyroid production and hormone production, we actually need to have good levels of iodine. And this is a big deal because we know that when our thyroid isn't working, we have a lot of fatigue, but we also struggle with weight gain. We tend to be very cold. You might have insomnia. You might have low stomach acid. You might have cold hands and feet and have a really hard time keeping your body temperature strong. There's a lot of things that can happen when your thyroid is under functioning. And I actually believe a lot of thyroid issues have an underlying iodine deficiency. There's a lot of things that play into thyroid health, but definitely iodine deficiency is huge. Okay, so when it comes to thyroid hormone or thyroid health, you really want to be considering your iodine levels. The other thing that iodine is incredibly important in is estrogen metabolism. So you need iodine to properly metabolize estrogen and also to produce enough healthy estrogen, because there's not just one type of estrogen. There are healthy metabolites of estrogen, so you can metabolize your estrogen down healthy pathways into healthy metabolites. And then there are unhealthy metabolites. When you have iodine deficiency, you tend to produce a lot of the unhealthy metabolites. So that means that women who have iodine deficiency can very easily get things like fibroids, endometriosis, and fibrocystic breast disease. If you have fibrocystic breast disease, I hope you're tuning in. You need to pay attention because iodine is a huge culprit in this, and the only way for you to have any success of reversing fibrocystic breast disease is by paying attention to your iodine levels. So we also need iodine for energy. That has to do with how it's involved with the thyroid hormone like we discussed before. There are receptors in every single cell in your entire body for iodine. So you will not have good cellular energy or good energy overall if you don't have good iodine levels. We also need iodine for intelligence and brain health. So when it comes to developing children or developing babies in the womb, in that first trimester, a lot of the intelligence and brain function is built. And if the woman who is producing that baby, if she is iodine deficient, that is going to affect the intelligence and brain health of that developing baby. So it's very important. And it's also important for our own brain health. People with iodine deficiency tend to have a lot of brain fog. They tend to feel very foggy because they don't have enough production to actually have that healthy, sharp, clarifying brain health. The other thing that iodine does is it's a very potent antimicrobial, so it's antiviral, antiparasitic, antibacterial, and antifungal. So it does help us fight off infections. So that's a big why reason why it's in your first aid kit, right? Because you're rubbing it on your little cut and it's helping prevent infection. So it's very antimicrobial as well. So pretty important stuff. Iodine is a very important mineral. And like I said, pretty deficient in the population today. So let's talk a little bit about some of the ways a person may get deficient. So, the obvious answer to this is low dietary intake. So definitely in North America, we don't consume as much iodine as people who are living in Asia. So in Asia, people might actually be consuming on average about 12.5 milligrams a day, whereas in the United States and Canada, we're getting a mere fraction of this. And the recommended daily allowance for iodine is excessively low, like crazy, crazy low. It's only 150 micrograms. So when you compare 150 micrograms to 12.5 milligrams in Asia, people who live in Asia are consuming almost 100 times as much iodine as we are. So I don't understand why our RDA for iodine is so crazy low, because it's barely enough to give you proper function. It's enough to prevent goiter and to prevent disease, but it's not actually enough to give you energy, to promote thyroid health, and give you all those benefits that we discussed in the beginning of this video. And in a lot of cases in North America, we do tend to have very iodine deficient soil. So unless you live near the ocean and you're consuming a lot of sea vegetables and kelp and fish and spending a lot of time in the ocean, there's a good chance you're just not getting enough iodine into your diet, okay? And then on top of that, there are a lot of things that actually compete with iodine absorption in our body and very easily make us deficient. So it's the halide chemicals. So this is going to include things like chlorine, chloramine, bromine, and fluoride. So these are a group of chemicals or metals that actually compete with iodine at the receptor level. So if you're getting exposed to these things, they can actually push iodine off of the receptor and then bind to the receptor. So even if you then consume iodine, maybe after this video, you're like, oh, I need to think about my iodine levels. I'm going to go buy some kelp. I'm going to go get some sea vegetables and start consuming more iodine. But if you have these halides attached to your receptors, then that iodine just kind of bounces off and gets excreted rather than binding to the receptor and getting absorbed into the system. And this is the thing. If you are drinking tap water, or if you ever have in your recent life, you are getting a shitload of halides, right? Because if you're drinking city or municipal water, it's disinfected with chloride. It also has chloramine in it. And depending on where you live in the world, there may be fluoride as well. So a lot of us are consuming these chemicals in the form of our water every single day, multiple times a day, and that is making us iodine deficient. So drinking tap water is a big no-no. You can't drink it. It's not only going to affect your iodine levels, but it's going to bring all kinds of other toxins into your world. And, it's funny because when I talk to people, people are like, oh, well, we have really clean water. Like our city apparently has the cleanest water. Like, I don't even know what that means. It's like complete and total bullshit because there are so many chemicals and crap in municipal and city water. Sure, maybe it's clean of parasites or bacterial organisms or feces because they disinfect it with chlorine, but all municipal and city waters, they're not filtering for metals. They're not filtering for glyphosate. They're not filtering for residue or runoff from agriculture like pesticides, herbicides, fungicides. They're not filtering for, what's the word I'm looking for? Drug residue. So this is another big one. So a lot of people are taking prescription drugs. They pee out what's left of that prescription drug into the toilet. That goes back into the water system, and that actually goes back into the water drinking system. So nobody is filtering for these things, and chlorine is toxic. Chloramine is toxic. Fluoride is especially toxic. So there's this big piece of tap water that, most people around the world are drinking, and this is making us incredibly iodine deficient, even if we are consuming good, healthy sources of iodine, okay? Bromine is another one. And so maybe you're like, oh, well, I drink spring water, or I'm on creek water, or, I filter my water and make sure those things aren't in it. Well, you got to look at like your car, your furniture, your mattress, because these things tend to have bromine added to them and they do off gas and we actually absorb them into our lungs. Non-organic strawberries are sprayed with bromine, and there's bromine used in a lot of breads as a leavener, so it helps bread rise. So a lot of us are still getting exposed to those things as well, and these make us very iodine deficient. And this is really problematic. So when you start getting iodine deficient, that's when hypothyroid starts to pop up. You start having thyroid issues. Of course, the course that is going to play into your energy levels. Not having proper iodine levels actually can promote Hashimoto's. And this, people don't get this because there's a lot of fear mongering out there around iodine, and people are going to tell you, you're going to find this on the internet, that people are saying, oh, well, if you take iodine with Hashimoto's, it's like adding fuel to the fire and it's going to make Hashimoto's worse. Well, there's actually a lot of research that points towards iodine deficiency being one of the primary causes of Hashimoto's. And I can tell you that I use an iodine protocol with all my clients with Hashimoto's and hypothyroid, and they're getting results. Okay. It's not making their thyroid issues worse. So there is a lot of fear mongering around it, probably because it's a very poorly understood mineral, and a lot of people don't understand that you can't just willy-nilly go out and take iodine. There's a whole protocol that comes with it that needs to be customized for you. So you do need to be working with an iodine literate practitioner to be doing iodine therapy safely. So I mentioned in the beginning, it's really, really important for estrogen hormone metabolism. So it can lead to that buildup of damaging estrogens. It promotes the 16-OH pathway. So that's one of the metabolites that your estrogen gets turned into. And this is the metabolite that actually leads to a lot of tumor growth. So that can cause things like fibroids, endometriosis, and it can promote fibrocystic breast disease. Very, very common. This is a symptom I see all the time, and these people desperately need iodine. Your energy levels will drop. You will gain weight. It's really hard to maintain a healthy weight when you are iodine deficient. You get that resistant weight loss where, like, no matter what you do, you can't lose weight. You're like eating healthy, you're exercising, you're fasting, and you're just stuck. You're not getting anywhere with your weight. That can indicate an iodine issue as well. I mentioned the brain fog. It can make your brain feel really, really foggy. Just fuzzy, like you're walking around in a tunnel. That's, a very typical iodine deficiency symptom. Like I mentioned, poor detox. So it can be lead to the buildup of certain metals and toxins in the body because you're not able to detox properly. And then there are a lot of studies that associate it with thyroid, ovarian, and breast cancer. So it can definitely have that, and it will lead to the buildup of copper and mercury in your body because you actually need iodine to detoxify those things. Okay. So yeah, lots going on with iodine. Really, really important to care about status. I mean, I would definitely put a big priority on adding iodine-rich foods into your diet. The best way to do this is with sea vegetables, things like kelp and seaweed and nori, all those like tasty little sea vegetables. It's a really good way. Just make sure you're buying them from a really good source. You want to buy them from someone who's testing them for metals, for toxins, because unfortunately our oceans are getting pretty contaminated these days. So you just want to make sure that you get these things from a reputable company, someone you trust, in order just so you're not, making yourself toxic. Okay. Another really great supplement that I do recommend is kelp. And again, you have to be careful. The brand that I trust the most is called Nature's Way, and they make kelp capsules, and they test them. And this is actually a really affordable supplement. Like, I think you can go on iHerb.ca and get a bottle of 180 capsules for like $8 or $9, and you can take 6 capsules a day. It's a really great way to boost your iodine status on top of those food sources of iodine. Really, really love Nature's Way kelp. So let's talk about testing for iodine. So blood testing for iodine isn't going to work. Urine testing for iodine doesn't really work either, because it doesn't really tell us what's going on with the iodine. Like, if you have high iodine levels in your urine, is it high because you have enough? Or is it high because your body's excreting it because the receptors are blocked with halides? The best test for iodine is probably a iodine loading test. So basically this just involves you taking high doses of iodine and then seeing how much is getting excreted in the urine. And, if you're if your receptors are saturated with iodine, then it just gets dumped in the urine. So you should actually have, technically, if you have good iodine levels, you should actually have high excretion in the urine. And that means like your iodine status is pretty good. But if you have really high uptake of iodine, it tells you that you're deficient, because those receptors can only take up iodine when they have space on the receptors. And what we want is full receptor saturation of iodine. But the problem with this test is you may excrete a lot of iodine if you have a lot of halide chemicals attached to your receptors. So, you know, it's not always a definitive test. The way that I like to determine iodine deficiency is actually with hair trace mineral analysis, or HTMA testing. So technically there is no iodine marker on the HTMA panel because it's actually not excreted through the hair. It is primarily excreted through the urine, but all the minerals have a relationship with each other. So I can look at the minerals that have the most tightly wound relationship to iodine and determine if there's an iodine deficiency. And then of course, looking at symptoms, people's symptoms as well. Because, you know, if people have endometriosis, if they have fibrocystic breast disease, if they have fibroids, like severe estrogen issues, they have Hashimoto's, hypothyroid, I'm probably going to want to put them on an iodine protocol. But I can actually look at the potassium levels, lithium, selenium, calcium, and copper. And when I look at those, I can actually look at them and determine if someone's iodine deficient. Because typically people who are iodine deficient, they have really low potassium and really low lithium levels. Very hard for the body to absorb and hold on to those minerals without good iodine status. Also, iodine deficiency tends to cause the buildup of calcium. That actually, in effect, slows the thyroid. So you end up with this really high calcium on hair mineral analysis, and you may end up with copper toxicity. So there may be high copper or hidden copper on the hair mineral analysis test, and there may be low selenium levels as well. You also may see a buildup of aluminum because iodine deficiency can affect aluminum levels and mercury as well. So I don't directly measure iodine. I look at the person, I look at hair trace mineral analysis or HTMA testing, and then based on that, I determine if somebody needs iodine, if someone needs an iodine protocol. So this is not the ticket to go out and start just willy-nilly taking iodine. I really don't recommend doing that, because if you don't do it properly, you can just waste your money, or you could actually cause your body some stress. So you need to do the iodine protocol properly. So you do want to be working with an iodine literate practitioner like me, and someone who runs hair mineral analysis, because you want to make sure that you only take iodine while also supporting the other minerals that need supporting. But I want to give you guys some good take-home actionable tips, things that you can do right now to support your iodine status. So we talked about sea vegetables, really great way to do that. Sea vegetables, kelp, nori, dulse, that sort of thing, just making sure you're getting it from a really good quality organic source. The other thing to do is to filter your tap and shower water, okay? Because if you ever hope to have good iodine status, you need to stop exposing yourself to halides that are competing with iodine. So I always recommend that people actually start with their shower water, because the halides, especially chlorine, chloramine, and fluoride, which are typically in municipal city water, they have really low vapor points. So that means that they vaporize, at pretty low temperatures. So if you're having a hot shower, those halides are turning into gases, and you're actually absorbing them through your skin, and you're absorbing them directly into your lungs. This is actually a massive cause of respiratory issues and asthma, okay? So I do recommend starting with a shower head filter, which is great because they're relatively cheap. I like Berkey, B-E-R-K-E-Y, and Pure Effects filters. It's like $80. It's not an expensive filter, and you just put it on your shower. Once you've done that and you can afford it, I recommend getting a filter for your tap water. I personally use Pure Effects. I like it because I can actually attach it to my tap, because I don't like having to fill up a canister because I'm lazy and I don't have fucking time for that. So I like to attach it to my filter. If you don't have fluoride in your water, you can get the compact version, which is the lowest price point. So what you can do is you can pull up your city's water report and just see if they put fluoride into the water. And if they don't, you can go with the compact. But if you do have fluoride in your water, you need to upgrade and go with the ultra. So it's more expensive, but you know you're getting that fluoride out of your water. We've talked about kelp, taking the Nature's Way kelp capsules. You can take as much as 5 to 6 capsules a day, which is a few milligrams. of iodine. So really good. If you couple that with food, you're going to get close to more of that kind of Asian intake of kelp, of iodine, which is really important. Plus the kelp has a lot of other minerals in it, all the cofactors for iodine. So it's a really good, awesome support for iodine if you aren't ready to work with a practitioner and go on an iodine protocol. So those are my recommendations. I hope that helps. This is a really big thing. This has really made one of the biggest impacts on my life. When I started taking iodine, it was like somebody turned on the fucking lights. It was like I was walking around in a tunnel. I was lying in that fatigue ditch, just so exhausted. I was struggling with chronic fatigue for so many years. And yeah, the iodine really turned things around for me. So really, really, really important thing to consider if you are struggling with energy issues or any of the symptoms that we discussed today. So guys, if you want more from me, make sure to download my free Endless Energy Quick Guide. I have tips on improving iodine and boosting your energy in this guide. It's pretty juicy, honestly. I give away all my best stuff in this guide, so make sure to download that. And if you want to work with me, if you want my support and you want access to functional testing like the hair trace mineral analysis that we discussed today, join me in my High on Energy group membership program. I've got a group of some pretty badass ladies, and you get full access to me, group coaching calls, Facebook forum, plus you can upgrade and purchase the hair trace mineral analysis and see where your iodine levels are at. So if you want links for that, they're in the show notes. And I will see you guys next Tuesday at the same time for the next episode of High on Energy TV. Okay, have a great day, guys. Thanks for listening.